Well, ladies and gentlemen, another day, another week, another month, another Disney Plus Marvel show that's gone. Oh boy, these things they just become so much more and more, and there's just never-ending cycle of MCU content. It is exhausting. It is exhausting. I think this is going to be one of the biggest breaks we have for a while, because we actually got it's the 13th of the day of this video coming out. And August 10th is the release of I Am Groot. And if you don't count that, August 19th is when She-Hulk will come out. So just about a full month without an MCU thing. Can the stands survive that long? Probably, I hope so. Episode 6 of Miss Marvel is here, the ultimate finale to this show. And I will say this. I have been championing this show since day one. I think it's actually original, it looks creative, it feels like a television show, and this finale, I think, did a lot of interesting things. It really left me just oh, there is so much to talk about in here, so much I think is genuinely interesting and creative, and other stuff where I'm oh, this really isn't much of anything, but there's so much just compelling narrative being sold in here, and I like it. It does wrap up a lot of loose ends pretty quick. And I get that. I mean, your audience is the same audience that watches everything else you make. So they know what you're doing. You're not going to trick them anymore. Except for one thing you did, but we'll get into that. So the end of the last episode, Kamala tells her mother and grandmother about her powers. This episode, we just head back home. Kamran and Bruno are on the run. Damage control's after them. It's just the clandestine stuff's done. Don't worry about it. Let's just deal with this now. So, damage control becomes the central villain of this piece now, and we're trying to protect Bruno and Kamran. And cool. It's kind of fun. It is interesting to see the varying degrees of powers and how they look special effects wise. Clearly, there wasn't a bigger push for Kamran's powers because the green looks less good than the crystallized blue and purple that Kamala's using, which I understand. You want to give the focus to Kamala when she uses her things. So we see Kamala tells the rest of her family. She sits them all down. We said her mother actually told them beforehand, and they're all in support of it. They all have a lot of questions about her powers, but inherently they're just okay, let's deal with that. So they know we don't have to beat around the bush anymore. If this was the CW or anything else, we'd spend an entire 4 seasons building to that moment. Screw it. They know. We can move on. And then Kamala's well, I have to go help Bruno and Kamran, and that's what she does. And I'm that's kind of cool. There's something fun about that. She just gets the costume. Yeah, screw it. It's like every other show. The costume comes in the last episode. I'm fine with that. I don't really give a shit. Do whatever you want. If you got it, that's fine. I don't care. She runs down the street. She is just catching up with them. And damage control's on their tail. So the plan is we can't hang out at the mosque. That's not a good thing to do. So we're going to send the boys on their merry way. And Nadia's going to send them over to the high school. And then we're just going to have a Home Alone situation. And yeah, okay. Okay. This isn't the stuff I loved about the episode. I just really think these characters are strong enough where you can see them play off each other, fun banter. So a big thing about this episode is Kamala meets up with Bruno and Kamran and Nadia, and then her brother Amir shows up to join the fight, and then Zoe also shows up to join the fight, and you have these children and Amir in a high school, and they're being chased by pretty much just a military organization with guns, and I don't want to spend too much time on this. I really don't, because I don't see anybody else really talking about this take. It's kind of unfortunate to do this part of the story now where children are being chased around a school with people with guns. And I think the smart thing they did do for that is change the guns to just sonic weapons where it just blasts them with a concussive blast. That's the smart thing, because if you were firing just ray guns or lasers or, God forbid, actual bullets, that would be unfortunate to see in today's climate in a school. So, a ragtag group consisting of the TikTok lady, which I love that you have to introduce the TikTok lady in here. Their plan is just to set up a bunch of traps around the school. stop damage control from capturing Comrade. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of fun. It does get a little Home Alone-ish, and I think that's going to be a deterrent for some people where it's like, I get it. There are moments where I'm like, yeah, okay, that's frustrating, and that's kind of lame. I did like the scene where they're throwing the baseballs. That was kind of cool. I like the way everyone's wearing a hoodie, tripping them up. I think that's kind of fun, but yeah, it's just like, okay, yeah, I forget these are kids, so let's treat them like kids. It's cool in that aspect. One of the things I actually think is really smart about that scene is that they tell Zoe, because she's got a following, tell people what's going on. So Zoe actually goes live. She's like, yo, I'm in the school. Damage control is like firing stuff at us. We're trying to get people out of here. Mass hysteria kind of happens. A bunch of people show up, and yeah, it's fun. It's kind of fun. I'm okay with that. I think because we didn't do a lot with damage control throughout the season, like we really focused more on the other parts of Kamala than damage control, that seeing them in this last episode really was boring. You're like, oh, there's somebody behind the scenes like, don't do this damage control lady does it anyways, and he's like, you failed me for the last time, damage control lady, goodbye. And then they kind of leave at the end after the events happen. But they do get captured, all except Kamal and Cameron, and she's trying to keep him safe. But eventually when they leave the school, he has a big burst of energy, and Kamal has to protect him from the oncoming bullets. And again, just having people in military gear shooting a kid outside of a high school, especially a kid of color, it's a good statement for a show like this. And I will say the stuff I think this episode was saying in terms of those politics, and this show in general, I think, I don't know if I should really go down this route, but we're going to do it anyways. I think viewing the message is trying to get across, I think it did it better than The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just because you feel there's like an actual community trying to support Miss Marvel's efforts in this. Whereas when we see Sam take on the mantle of Captain America, it feels like no one is fully accepting of it yet. Where the instant you see this Muslim girl step onto the scene, there is a community behind it. She's there just like, yeah, we want this woman to represent us. I think that was handled better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, but that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. So a couple of things happen in this final scene when they're trying to get Cameron down. Kamala and Biggins, and it is interesting because it's whatever. I don't know. Like, again, I guess it's easier to do special effects wise than having her stretch her real arms. So giving her like big glowy feet and arms, I don't care. She says in Biggin. That's enough, I guess. I don't really think you needed more, honestly. Like that was enough. It was cool. Saves Cameron. We have to get him to the harbor, and then we see that MK from Into the Badlands, who's actually the Red Dagger, is going to get his guys over, send him on his merry way. You know, the Clandestine and the Red Daggers will finally be together, all because of Kamala, and that feud. That's kind of fun. And I do like the scene where Damage Control is like really trying to dig in and like attack all the kids. And you see that the entire community of this Jersey City comes in and stands behind Cameron and Kamala and protects them from Damage Control wanting to fire upon them. That was a really powerful moment that feels real. Like, that felt like, yeah, that is the statement you had to make for this show. Make the government officials the bad guys. This is just a girl trying to do right by this kid who's on the wrong side of the track. His mother abandoned him. He has to figure out this lesson for himself, and this was the way to do it. I think that was strong. Honestly, some of the most emotional parts of anything in the MCU lately, because it's not just because her parents were there too, but the entire community, every character we've seen so far, like the Sheik was even there, and you're just like, that's awesome. So much good stuff in that scene, so much good powerful moments in that scene. I really dug it. And I'm not going to say anything like if anybody knows it's Kamala, but if the entire like collective is there and Kamala's the noticeably absent one, and then this woman happens to have the same build and look as Kamala, I'd figure it out, but that's just me. Cool. They save Cameron, Damage Control gets out of there. They both wrap up pretty easily, but okay, I don't need it to be this big extravagant thing where it's like we have to explain every detail. She wasn't supposed to attack the kids in the high school. She did. Get out. You're bad now. Cameron gets to the docks. He's out of there. Good. And Kamala got her suit, and she's a hero of Jersey City now. It's all good. You don't need anything else for me. I'm on board with that. Like, you sold me. You won the rights. You're good. You're solid. You had the right emotional beats. I love the jokes she has with her brother and her mother throughout the episode. They're good stuff. It's working well. You get a nice really wrap-up scene where she's talking to her father about the nature of her name. And I kind of, it is kind of like cheesy, but I'm like, it's supposed to be cheesy. I know what I'm watching now. Where it's like Kamala is just like something of wonder and perfection and to marvel at it. And you are our Miss Marvel. And she's like, I share the same name as Carol Danvers. That's going to be my name. I am incorporating that into my life. And thus the origin of Miss Marvel is born. And I'm fine with it. It's cool. It really worked. It sold me on the story. And we see everything kind of get wrapped up. The mosque is okay. We see Bruno's going to go off to Caltech, or he did already. Everything is coming up Kamala. And it's pretty fun that way. I respect it so much for that. But there is kind of two stingers at the end. The first one is Bruno gets Cameron's car, and he's going to go out on a little joyride and drive around everywhere and have a good time. Nadia and Kamala show up there, and Bruno's like, actually, Kamala, I think there's something weird like in your body, because like when we studied that compared to your family, there was something different about you. And just in that moment, I'm thinking, oh, there's something inhuman about her genes. But no. Bruno says almost something like a mutation. And then the da-na-na-na-na-na sting comes in. Okay. That really, I don't think that's bad. But here's what I think could lead to a problem with that. You are really putting Kamala in the shoes of everything else, aren't you? Like, you're building her own identity, potentially with the Norse stuff and the Jinn. You still could connect it to the Inhuman route, and now you're saying mutant and a Marvel in the Marvels. I'm like, that's a lot. But that's fine, I guess. So Kamala is officially the first mutant we see in this story who is from this Earth and not Professor X in a wheelchair somewhere. That's exciting, I guess. I don't really care for the X-Men. I am not an avid comic book reader of the X-Men and any of that. So the fact that they're teasing it, I'm like, of course you are. I don't really have any attachment to that. But making Kamala a mutant that doesn't destroy her, it just makes me question what part of her was the power. Is her embiggening, big glowing stuff her mutant power? Or is that the power she gets because she is of Nor descent, because that is what they could all do, because that's what Cameron was doing? And is it just that her mutant power was triggered because of that, or are we going to see she develops another power because of that? Those are interesting things I was thinking about, and I was like, oh, that's fine. So that's cool. Kamala's a mutant. I have no issues with that. It makes sense to me. I am an Inhuman guy. I don't know, I've just always, the X-Men were just something, I'm like, there's so much of this at the time that I got into comics. I was like, I can't. There's 2 Avengers books. I'm going to read the Avengers books. And I've been an Avengers fan ever since. That's just me. And then we get another post-credit scene. It had to happen just because you needed to establish that she's going to have a connection to Carol Danvers at some point. So Kamala just sees her bangle glowing, and then poof, she turns into Brie Larson, who, okay, is this going to be her look for the Marvels movie? I don't hate it. Is this a scene from the Marvels movie? Because I don't hate it. I'm just like, okay, they're switching places. So on top of being a mutant and being connected to like the Jinn reality, now she has a magic bracelet that is connected to Captain Marvel. And that's a lot of things to throw at this young girl. My favorite thing about all of that, though, is when you hear Bruno say, like, there's like a mutation inside of you, she's just like, yeah, it's just another label for people to call me. That's the X-Men. Like, you really said it in one word, didn't you, darling? Works for me. A good finale. There are some issues where it just like wraps up easy, and I think the story kind of loses its momentum a bit, but there's nothing bad about this. It looks visually stunning. The acting is top-notch. The writing is superb. Everything feels interesting. I'm never bored watching it. I do think some of the jokes don't land, and sometimes I just go, yeah, that makes sense, without actually having a reaction or connection to it. But if I had to put this on a scale of everything else that's come out for television from the MCU, I think it's just neck and neck with WandaVision for being a beautiful send-off to these characters and telling something interesting. It's very impressive, and I think this show really showed you that Amon is going to be a staple of this universe and will probably be its central figure if these continue until we're all dead. So that's great. This was fun. Miss Marvel worked for me. Sometimes it didn't. But overall, I have more positive to say about this show than I do any of them, really. So that's a really cool thing to see. Aside from a few VFX hiccups, I think it's the best looking show. So good job, Miss Marvel, for taking a character you knew the world was going to fall in love with and actually making them fall in love with her all the same. I'm impressed. You should all be impressed. Go watch Miss Marvel. It is worth the time. It is worth the effort. This is the kind of direction I want to see the MCU go. Giving a young superhero an actual character beat, aside from just enjoying food and being quirky cringe. That's fun. You did something with a cool character. So that's going to do it for this review of Miss Marvel and all of the reviews of Miss Marvel. Will we be back to talk She-Hulk? You bet your bottom dollar we will be. And in between that, we might even be talking the Sandman. So thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.